Welcome back to Trailmakers and more of Fenrir's Airforce. So today we're going to be taking a look at the center branch of our tech tree, which is also known as the named fighters. Because whether they repeat or more of a one-off, they all have unique nicknames. So we have the Mark 14D series, the Black Cat, which is the most in this branch with 10 variations. Then we have ones like the Moonbeam, the 15D, which have just the one variation so far. And then we've got some in the middle that only have a couple of variations, like the Night Sprite. Now we have our tech tree over here. I finally made the visual for it, although it's a little bit of just letters and numbers that doesn't mean much outside of my brain. It'll help me explain things to you. So in terms of our tech tree, the branch we're looking at today is the central section here. And it starts off with any tier 3 plus 13M series. Now in a previous video, I've already gone over the ins and outs of the 13M series, which has the entire branch to itself over on the left-hand side here, with the starter tier 1, 13M10, very well-rounded, useful one, to all sorts of variations of it. But anything from this row onwards will get you into the named fighter branch. You can also get into the named fighter branch by getting the melee version of the 13M series. Well, one of the melee versions, the other one's down here. And those will also be able to get you in through this side. Now the first one that you'll be able to earn is a tier 4, the Mark 14D9 Black Cat. Then we have in tier 5 the 15D Moonbeam, the 14C2 Night Sprite, and we get into the variations of the Black Cat, because there's 10 total Black Cat variations now. You'll be seeing a couple of them, but there's only a couple of the Night Sprites on the tree, and then these ones on this side are more unique with their names and are all more bespoke builds. Yeah, the only one that has two versions on this side of the tree is the 15H, the Pulverizer. You'll definitely see that one in this video. Anyways, let's move on to looking at the plans themselves before I bore you too much. So like I said, starting at tier 4, you'll be able to claim your first Black Cat, and don't worry, it doesn't start off with the weakest one or anything like that. It technically starts off with one of the strongest possibilities. The 14D9 is more of a standardized version of the Black Cat, because the Black Cat's upgrades focus, well, primarily on logic, but if we pop back over here to the tech tree one more time, you'll see that for each tier, there's 2 Black Cats available. You'll see for each tier, there's a 14D series available, and then another 14D series branching off to the side from it. So once you earn the first one from each tier, you'll be able to get the variant for that tier, just for fun and shenanigans. But the primary line just receives more and more logic as it goes on, all the way up to the Mark 14D13. Yes, I said that right this time. And then it gets a little bit more firepower down here in tier 8, but otherwise it keeps the same firepower kit more or less. The 14D15 is the melee version, if I'm not mistaken. They're all starting to blur together numbers-wise, but I'll figure out some more specific ways to break up the tech tree later. Anyways, back to the Black Cat. The logic options for the primary version are multiple firing modes. So we start off with only one pair of smart cannons active. Then when we press right on the D-pad, the blue lights shift to green, and we have 2 active. And then if we press that same button one more time, it brings us to our third firing mode, with all 6 smart cannons active. Oh no, I'm shooting a moonbeam. Yeah, let's move a little bit. And we'll shift our camera, because we also have the variable maneuverability mode, which is a little bit more wordy to explain. But basically, what it's going to be doing is limiting the sensitivity and maximum angles of all of our control surfaces and our thrust vectoring. That colored light is indicating in an analog fashion what the actual maneuvering power is, with the purple color being the highest, red being the lowest, and I typically run it anywhere from yellow to a greenish color before I start stepping it up to match people, which is the main purpose that I have the variable systems on this. The other reason is because the maximum handling is rather powerful on this build. So let's get into the air and start showing that off. Right now we're in green and green, so I'm going to turn our firing mode back down. We don't need that. I'm going to turn our camera back into something a little bit more non-seasickness inducing. Now you will notice that unlike the 13M10, your first black cat and most of its variants aren't going to be perfectly balanced. You'll need to twitch your controls a little bit here and there in order to maintain more level flight. But if you bring the maneuverability all the way down, it's much less twitchy in making those corrections. The lower threshold is 20% or so. It varies between the yaw, pitch, and roll, I believe. But it allows for much more fine control and movement, despite the fact that when you bring it all the way up, it takes 2 seconds, or I believe, to fully transition, or maybe 1.8 seconds, because minus the 20% or whatever it is. Well, numbers. But now, trying to fly straight is much more difficult, but when you need to turn, it'll be like you're full of gyros, even though I promised you there's not a single gyro in any of Fenrir's Airforce builds. They are entirely banned from the server, so there's no point in me using them. There's one prototype missile that's on the special rewards list, but you'll only be able to use that in the wild once you earn it. But again, the mobility of the Black Cat can be pretty astounding when you have it in maximum mode, though it is a little bit sloppy, as if you get drunk at the controls, just because with all that extra maneuvering force from the thrust vectoring, it tends to oversteer pretty easily. Now, what more to say about the Black Cat? I think I'll save that for later, because I'll show a couple more variations of it, although certainly not all 10 in this video. So I'm going to come in for a landing, so that I can grab the already spawned planes since I haven't spawned new ones, just because. We also have the air brake feature, standard on all kitten jets, although I didn't use it to my advantage very well, trying to come in for a more dramatic landing and botching it. But that's okay. It didn't damage the plane at all. And although I frown a little bit on air repairs, you're 100% allowed to reposition your plane to catch it from sliding off the runway, things like that. Once your landing gear is on the ground, I tend not to shoot you anyways. But let's move on. Next up, we'll take a look at something from the more one-off side of the tech tree branch, the Mark 15D Moonbeam. Now the Moonbeam has a little less maneuvering force than the Black Cat does. They both look like they have 2 maneuvering thrusters per side, but the Black Cat has a piston glitch on it, so it actually has 3, 50% more than what this has. However, don't count the Moonbeam out, because this has firepower on its side. It's piston glitched in, so you cannot see anything more than the rockets, but you can already see that we have twice the rockets on this one. But one thing at a time. This is a one-off and a relatively early version of the one-offs, so it actually only has... No, we do have variable maneuverability, not analog maneuverability, never mind. So we can change gradually from, I imagine it's 20% all the way up to 100%, although I might have tuned it slightly differently for this model. And then we have various firing modes. We start off in blue, then yellow, then orange, and finally red. So we have 4 total this time. And we start off with, oh no, our tech tree. We start off with the 2 smart cannons, then add 2 more, 2 more again, but the 4th stage, and why it's called the moon beam, is because this is the first one available on the tech tree to use blasters for extra firepower in its highest mode. And those rockets are a little special too, because they should have some support logic that allows, yep, it fires 1 pair at a time when you press L2, and then it switches the next active pair to be next up to fire. So if you have both of them recharged, you can fire them back to back as quickly as you can press the trigger, or you can fire them with as much delay in between as you need if you want to save them for the perfect shot. And you won't have to worry about holding down the trigger for any of the early versions of the timings. Those are long gone. So let's get in the air a little bit and show the physical capabilities of the moonbeam. So I'm going to bring it up to yellow from the start, just because the only reason you use the minimum mode is for like formation flying and stability and things like that. Otherwise, with the moonbeam, you'll always want to turn it up a little bit. But we still have our maximum firepower active. And trust me, even though it's only 2 blasters more powerful than the standard kit of 6 smart cannons, it's a fair bit more damage, because each blaster is worth approximately 2 smart cannons in terms of DPS. It's a little wiggly wobbly because not only do the bullets not do exactly twice the damage or anything, but the clip size is different, the reloads are different, and all that, but I think they got it about right with the power cores. Twice the power cores is adequate. But anyways, as you can see, the moonbeam does alright in its 30 to 40% yellow capacity. Let's bring it up to maximum. And it still has a pretty significant amount of maneuverability. We can spin ourselves right out with our pitch control and regain control in but a moment. We've got... oh, I messed that right up. However, that impact does show the durability of many of these jets, particularly the later ones in the tech tree, like this, the central branch. The 13M series, not quite as much. But firepower damage is one thing, but the piston glitch allows them to take a little bit more impact damage than normal planes seem to. Quite often I'll have plane-on-plane impacts, and they'll pop into a million pieces, and I'll just lose part of the nose. Often taking the firepower with it, but in this case it actually survived, judging by our icons. But yeah, let's move on and talk a little bit more about some of the other versions. Oh, actually I'll take a quick look at, say, differences in armor package. Because the 14D9 here has some of the best armor in Fenrir's Airforce. Yeah, we're taking a slight step back. Now there's a lot of these 2x1 shield panels on here, and if you don't know why, that's because the shield panels all have 14 bullet health, regardless of their size. So using smaller panels squeezes more bullet health into the same volume. And speaking of volume, due to our piston glitch, we actually have a second layer of them before you get to any of the thrusters, due to the way that things get squished in. Our upper thrusters get piston glitched past this lower layer. So in order to kill the engines, first you have to get through the outer shell, then the frame of the plane, or the fuselage blocks, and then the inner layer of armor as well. It's also armored from the underside, but there's only one layer there. But you're facing your underside towards your opponents a lot less often, I find, so that's why the armor scheme still works. And you can see those maneuverability thrusters I mentioned that are piston glitched in here as well. All the Black Cats have that because that's part of their standard airframe. Now in the Moonbeam here, we have similar, but not quite as powerful armor, because our upper skin is very limited just due to the shape of the plane. We just have kind of a little V-shaped line of armor on the upper area, and a little bit around the back of the cockpit. And then also, for complexity reasons, we've got some larger pieces, like this 2x4 shield here, but that one's doubled up over your canard protection. Now the control surfaces themselves, as well as the lift panels, are never covered up on these planes, because covering up the control surfaces just seems a little cheesy and weird, and covering up the lift panels with armor kills their lift factor. So, not very good either, especially seeing as these planes tend to be on the heavy side, considering their piston glitches and armor. Carrying around a whole second fuselage, that adds some weight. And if you're wondering where the blasters are, they're tucked in under these shield panels here. As the firepower increases, sometimes it doesn't fit directly into the weapons bay. You'll see that particularly on the pulverizer when I get to that one. So let's move on, and let's start clearing these out as we go. Next up, we'll take a look at the Night Sprite, and it's both a quick plane and we'll take a quick look at it. Because little guys tend to be a little faster, because they've got better power to weight ratio and less drag. And in terms of power to weight ratio, the Night Sprite does it well. It has very little in the way of a fuselage, although it still has decent armor for its size. We've got the double layering going on, with the upper layer covering a substantial amount of the tiny fuselage. And then we have the inner sheet as well. However, from the side, there's basically nothing. There's a little bit of armoring underneath the wing here, because otherwise your engines are directly exposed. It's pretty packed in here. And then some kind of decorative armoring, so to speak. We have these little transition pieces here with their fake thruster tip. And that's just because if someone does get behind you, or a relatively rear angle, that's an extra 4 bullet health per piece that can get soaked up before they get to the back of your thrusters. Because there's only one maneuvering thruster per side on this, just given its small side. I did experiment with a version that had doubled up thrusters at this size of fuselage. It was too much. It was just spinning out always. So we'll bring this to like a 50% maneuverability, just to start off. You can see that'll give us good roll control and pretty sharp pitch. The yaw is a little slow, but that's because this is before the update where you can speed up the hinges or use small servos. I believe on some of the zero drag versions I've already updated that, but I might update it on the earlier versions as well. We'll see. Now the Night Sprite has the variable handling. As I already mentioned, I put it into about 50% mode. And it has variable firepower, although a lot less of it, with only two pairs of smart cannons maximum. Which also simplifies the logic. Rather than being an accumulator-based system, I'm pretty sure this is just an OR gate NOR gate system. 2 rockets are on it. And you might have heard a weird noise there. Well, no, probably not, because I put music over this, but there was a weird noise there when I did a sharp turn at full speed. Let's see if I can get that to tease out again. I heard it, but it still didn't do the damage. I suppose this isn't the version that does it. That's the zero drag version. But I believe it's the 15C2, the non-melee zero drag, Or maybe the C3. Goodness, they're letters and numbers. It's all blurring together. But one of them, you'll have to be careful with the handling at top speed because the piston glitch is so iffy that too sharp for a turn at supersonic speeds will rip the plane in half. Which I suppose is a problem in some aspects, but it's also fairly realistic in others. It's one of the few planes in Trailmakers that will rip its wings and tail off if you maneuver too hard. I shouldn't say few planes in Trailmakers, few planes in my Airforce. But anyways, moving on, we're going to take a look at some more of the Black Cat variants real quick. So I mentioned in the intro of the video that each of the Black Cats has a variation in each tier. So I'll go through some of them, as well as some of the standard versions. I'll kind of bounce back and forth and show a handful. But the first one I'm pulling out here is the 14D8, because the variation that's first available to you is a little bit spicy, but also skillful, because this is the no auto-aim version. It uses the tiny blasters, so it's high caliber, and it has 10 variable fire modes. And by variable fire modes, I can actually save variable fire rates with this one, because rather than activating and deactivating a certain number of pairs of them, it actually fires at different rates. So there's 16 tiny cannons, or tiny blasters on it, which seems excessive, but without auto-aim, it's not too bad. Especially because in your base mode, or firing mode 1, I should call it, this is your fire rate. Very slow pulses. Then every time you press right on the D-pad, it'll increase a little bit up to stage 10. So there's 2, 3, 4, and you can see by stage 5 we're getting a little bit better coverage for consistent aiming. Crank it up a little bit more into purple, and then to red, which is our maximum. And you'll notice that we're never actually... It's loud, I'm surely going to talk over it, aren't I? But when I'm firing, it never completely depletes our little reload bar, because we're not getting too close to the actual maximum speed of these cannons, because at a certain point, instead of just speeding up the blaster fire, it starts leaving a gap between them, so more of a burst fire. So the overall DPS doesn't change much to crank it past this. But anyways, yeah. Other than that, we have the standard variable maneuverability. No difference there. And the armor package, I think, is a little bit less due to complexity reasons. Let's see in here. No, it's actually not too much different. So, approximately the same armor package as well. It's surprising considering... Oh, no, there is some missing. The armor along the rails here, that helps keep the wing on, has been chopped in half and is only on the bottom layer now. That was probably a good dozen complexity points that I saved there in order to fit the logic in. So let's move on. So I'm going to save time and not pull it out, but the Mark 14D11, which is the tier 5, has limited ammunition systems in it as its upgrade to the logic package. It'll have 12 pairs of rockets, and it has 150 units worth of gunfire, and that varies depending on how many guns you have active, of course. So if you only got the 2 smart cannons active, it'll last you for 150 seconds. If you're using 4 of them, it'll drain in 100 seconds. And if you use all 6 of them, it drains in 50 seconds. And it reloads when landed. But its variant, well, the variant available at this tier, if I go up a little bit, is the 15, which is... Yes, it is the melee version. So the Black Cat variant available at tier 5 is the 14D15, the melee version. It has, of course, reduced guns because it's melee focused. You really only use them to help you with the targeting icons, so that you can see when someone's behind you or to the side of you and things like that. And it also has significantly reduced armor. I believe this might be the lowest armor package out of all of the Black Cat series, where the inner armor is very, very gutted. It's down to a handful of 2x4 shield panels. The rails are exposed on the top and bottom. And even the top layer suffers a little bit and has some 2x2s. Though for the nameplate's sake, I didn't change this one here. And that's just for complexity reasons, because actually, I just realized I never used up my last 2 complexity points. Let's do that live. Boop, 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 boop. Piston glitch confirmed to still work. Boom. Slightly better armor. Okay. The smaller the shield panels you're able to use, the better. But yeah, sacrificing all that armor was necessary for the complexity of the swords because they're 20 complexity apiece. Now this still has the variable maneuverability modes, but I reckon with the blade jets, given you'll need to get really close and stay really agile, you'll be using it a lot more than you will with just the standard versions. Keeping it in a lower maneuverability so that your turns don't sap too much speed, and then bringing it up at the last moment so that you can dodge or slash accordingly. Now melee jets are pretty straightforward, but at least the way that I work them, the intent is never to directly ram the target, it's to slide by them, mostly with the wingtip blades, but sometimes, if you can match their speed more precisely, to come up behind them and use the front blades to just kind of nip their tail off. The front blades will protect you from ramming a little bit, but I've taken substantial damage most times I ram someone in a blade jet. It's just simply a fact of Trailmakers that collisions don't do well for either party involved. But anyways, this is a quick version. Well, not a quick version, a simple version, so I'll keep it quick. So I was going to show the Pulverizer H2 next, but apparently I lost the save file for that one. I can't find it for the life of me. But yeah, this one here is the Photon, which is the next one up at tier 7. Yes, tier 7. I had to look at my list. But it features a pretty significant armor package and high firepower package. It's actually one of the few that's above what I typically run the server at, although the limited firepower is adjusted up and down accordingly for challenge modes and once people earn planes that actually warrant me using this firepower. But yeah, so it has the variable firepower between 2 smart cannons, adding 2 blasters onto that, adding 4 blasters onto it, and having all 6 blasters alongside those starting 2 smart cannons. And like I said, the armor package is fairly good too. Because this has blasters, it's intended for fighting planes that have blasters. I'll almost never use blasters unless someone already uses them first. Just saying. But that's user discretion. I prefer lower to medium firepower, but some people prefer the high DPS melts your face off stuff. And that's just fine. To each their own. That's why there's so many variations on our tech tree. And next we'll take a look at the Kitten Jet Mark 14 D12 Black Cat, and I'm saying its full name because I'm looking at its full page, which is almost like a little user's manual, right? We've got the limited ammunition, and we have limited fuel as well. So we've got the same ammunition package as before, but we now have fuel that runs out in about 500 seconds? Yes, 500 seconds it says. It should be set to whatever I set it at, but it is adjustable. So the standard fuel rating lasts for about 8 to 9 minutes. I think specifically 8 minutes and 20 seconds. And that's only at full throttle because it varies depending on how much you've got the trigger down. It has an autopilot too, which uses the fuel accordingly. It's got the variable firepower, of course, variable maneuverability mode, the air brake, and yeah, the autopilot, which can be set to either go straight or hold either turning circle. And it even has the option to send coordinates onto public channels, which isn't anything too fancy, but it sacrificed just a hint of armor in order to fit that in there, so I figured I might as well mention it. The armor package is still quite good though. It's from the top, it's more or less unchanged, and the inner layer has just replaced some of the 2x1s with 2x2s. Bottom as well. I think I did, and I might adjust it, but yeah, I left the tail a little bit blank here. But that's dangerous behavior, to leave surfaces that the control surfaces are mounted on exposed to gunfire and explosions. That's asking for trouble, I suppose. But if you're using this version, you're already asking for trouble. Not that it doesn't work well, of course, it works just fine. But you're holding yourself back quite a bit with this version with limited fuel and ammo. It's there for the challenge, not to make you more dangerous in combat. That's for the other variants. And once you've earned the D12 at this tier, you'll be able to earn the D9B if you'd like, which trades some of its armor for top speed using a bit of zero drag. Now there's also a full zero drag option, which I suppose is the one I should fly around. Well, I'll just show this one quickly in build mode, just to give you an idea of how much armor it sacrifices. So from the top, we're already starting to shrink down to some 2x2 shield panels. As they shrink down, but increase technically, shrink down the armor value. On the inner layer, not only do we sacrifice our armored rails completely, we've got 2x4s. We do still have some of the crucial armor over the wing connections here though, so we haven't sacrificed everything. We've got the piece over the yaw logic. And we've got our tail a little bit more protected here. We've still got some 2x2s there. But I'm getting into the real nitty-gritty of this, aren't I? Let's start speeding things up because we're getting towards the end of the recording timer. Seeing as I was just talking about the zero drag options, I suppose I'll show the D9C and actually fly it around a little bit. Because this is the near full zero drag, it isn't perfect, both to retain some armor and to retain some of its aerodynamic stability. It is less stable than before, but that's okay. Because who needs stability when you can go over 1,000 miles an hour? The other adjustment to this version is that the lower threshold for our maneuverability is set to 10% instead of 20%. Because once we're supersonic, we really don't need to go above 10% much. Like, I'm being as gradual as I can with the controls, and the controls are 10% on top of that. And still perfectly adequate maneuverability, for maintaining supersonic speeds. I'm trying not to drop above or below 800 miles per hour as we're maneuvering, keeping it pretty graceful. But at any point you start sensing danger, you can dial up your maneuverability. I'm going to crank it up to full, and I'm just going to do a full turn at 1,000 miles an hour. It would definitely turn a pilot to jelly. But yeah, you can bust straight into full maneuverability mode anytime you need. It's just harder to maintain your speed in full maneuverability mode because of the twitchy nature of it. But the firing package is the same, or firepower package I mean. So it's still just the 6 smart cannon maximum. No need to really show that off or talk about it more. And yeah, it's based on the D9, so it doesn't have any of the fancier logic either. Go ahead and respawn. But if you're really interested in speed, what you want to go for is the Mark 15C3 Night Sprite, which is fast on its own before the zero drag, and then gets a pretty substantial zero drag treatment. Or its further variant, the C6, which is zero dragged and has blades. Which I'm going to show this one off because blades are fun, especially when you can catch up to most things in the battlefield. So as you can see, it's a pretty substantial zero drag treatment, but because this is a smaller airframe, I don't think we actually had to sacrifice much, if any, armor to achieve it. Now I think I still have to adjust the earlier version. So this particular version uses only a single detachable block for its entire zero drag package, although the server limit is typically 2 detachable blocks for symmetrical payloads and symmetrical detachables, and I can up it from there. It's just discouraged due to lag reasons mostly, and just because I respect good engineering practices. It helps balance out the fact that zero drag can crank up the speed of any build with relative ease. It gives you a little bit more of a challenge for your customized builds. But yeah, let's go ahead and start flying it. So like the other Night Sprites, it has variable maneuverability modes, and I don't think I had to adjust this one because 20% on the Night Sprite is actually pretty adequate for high-speed stuff. But now that I'm flying it, it's not actually as fast as I recall. I think... yeah, we're maxed out under 1,000. So the highest speed Black Cat is actually still a little higher than Night Sprite. I'll have to work on a version that's much higher, because the Night Sprite is meant to represent the faster of the options. Oh well. Everything's still a work in progress, loosey-goosey, and you are allowed to customize any builds once you've unlocked them, so if you feel you can do a better zero drag package on it, you're welcome to try. Some things that might have held me back are, of course, the piston glitch. Considering that this is a single detachable block version, the weld groups were a little feisty. But that made it more interesting to build, so it's fun. Anyways, moving on. I recently added in 2 upgunned versions of the Black Cat. So this version uses 4 miniguns and 2 blasters, and it's variable firepower as well. So it starts off with 1 minigun set, then 2 pairs of miniguns, and I was doing the wrong button. My brain cells are failing. But yeah, once you up it to the 3rd setting, you get the blasters in there for the high caliber oomph. But there's no sense in flying it around. Its physical capabilities are the same. I'm just going to switch over to the the D14. I almost called it the M14. That's a very different plane. But yeah, this one has the 6 blasters. For the maximum firepower without too much adjustment to it, it just has to sacrifice a little bit of armor for the complexity because the blasters cost more. But if your dream is a high maneuverability, high firepower combo with high armor to boot, you'll have to get all the way up to Tier 8, because this is the second available Black Cat in Tier 8. I suppose you can unlock your own Black Cat and customize it, but for the purposes of unlocking further planes, customizations of higher firepower will be treated as higher tier. Just to let you know. So if you earn your first Black Cat and then dress it up to be like this one, you will earn planes accordingly, and yeah. Earning a lower tier plane with a higher tier plane will take you more time, whereas using a lower tier plane to earn the higher tier ones, less so. It's yeah, I think I worded that right. If I didn't word that right, I'll fix it with text on screen for sure. Surely I'll catch it in the editing room. Let's move on. And finally, since I'm a little frustrated about it, I saved it for last. I'll be showing the Pulverizer H1, which I suppose it won't be too hard to adjust it back into the Pulverizer H2 and resave it. But this version is Tier 8 because it uses 8 blasters as its maximum firepower, alongside 2 miniguns that are its primary capability. So it has 5 total firing modes. And it also has the doubled up rocketry. The thing it doesn't have as much of, though, is armor, due to complexity reasons. So both versions of the Pulverizer are pretty much glass cannons. And in terms of its... oh, stop sliding. In terms of maneuverability, it should be relatively on par with the Black Cat because we've got the extra maneuverability thrusters piston glitched in as well. And the yaw will handle a little bit differently because the vertical stabilizer design is different, but that's minor. So let's crank up the maneuverability a little bit just to see how it handles. Actually, let's crank it up all the way, yeah. So I believe it's a little heavier, or at least longer than the Black Cat, so its pitch control is a little less aggressive. Its yaw, however, seems to be at least as aggressive, if not more so, due to that structural fact. It is a little bit of a sloppier flyer. It's not quite as steady as the Black Cat, but who needs stability when your base firepower is 2 miniguns, and then you can crank it up about, I don't know, 5 to 8 times more intense than that. Yeah. I'd say that's adequate for a Tier 8. So I will be interested in when people have these unlocked, but I'll also be a little bit terrified. And once you start unlocking vehicles that have higher than standard firepower, if you come to the server with them, all you'll have to do is send me a little message, and I'll up the firepower accordingly. That will mean I'll most likely be using higher tiered vehicles to fight them, but that's just to make things interesting. I try to go for not necessarily mirror matches, but at least within the same tier line. I think that about wraps up things for our video. I'll just pull out our tech tree here one more time. So yeah, we went through quite a few of the 14D series. We took a look at a couple of the night sprites. And, oh goodness, I'm looking at you, 15H, where did you go? That's not the first build to have disappeared recently. I don't know if I'm misclicking things with the new blueprint moving feature, or if they're actually getting deleted on accident somehow. I don't know. I'm slightly concerned. I have at least the base models of a lot of these backed up, but some of them would be a little bit troublesome to rebuild, at least within their exact state. Replacing them with an equivalent build is one thing, but having to build entirely from scratch takes a little bit longer. Any given one of these planes is at least a 2-hour project. So, yeah. Anyways, I'll probably add a little bit more information on screen as we go out about the Airforce itself, the rules and regulations, etc., etc. But let's see what to say briefly. Any any technology that you've seen here, once unlocked in one of these planes, on slow days anyways, I'll help you install into any of your personal aircraft, or other kitten jets. So if you, say, unlock all the fancy tech of the 14D12 and want an autopilot system installed in one of your early 13Ms, or one of your personal planes, as long as the server's, pardon me, as long as the server's not too busy, I should be able to help you out with that. I've been finding it more and more interesting to retrofit fancy systems into people's planes without changing people's planes too much. So, it offers a good challenge to me, extra tech for you, and a little bit of challenge to get there. So, I'll be putting stuff on screen as I talk about it, I'm sure. Let's be fancy with this. But also, for unlockable upgrades, at Tier 1, you'll have piston glitches available, and by Tier 1, I mean from the starting point, from when you first enter the server and get your 13M10. Then at Tier 2, you can have fuel and ammo system logics, or multi-toggles. Tier 3, you get variable firepower and handling available. Tier 4, zero drag glitches. They're not difficult to do, but they're a little bit tedious sometimes. I have them higher on the list, and also just because they add a lot of performance to the plane, they're also higher on the list for that reason. Tier 5, autopilot and RC sub-vehicles. And then at Tier 6, I can try to help you out with RC tracking basics as best as I can, but I'm still a little new to that myself, so, well, that's why I said basics rather than expert opinions. And in terms of earning stuff with your personal planes, any personal aircraft that falls within the regulations, which I'll have on screen at some point during this babbling, can unlock up to Tier 3 kitten jets. You can unlock up to Tier 5 using modified stock versions, but to earn anything from Tier 6 and upwards, so anything including the pulverizer, the zero-dragged versions of the the Night Sprite, and some of the fancier and stronger of the Black Cat series, those will all be locked behind. I say locked behind. You'll have to have unlocked and be using stock versions in order to get credit towards those. It's all a little bit loosey-goosey right now, nothing's set in stone, but it'll take more effort and impressing me harder to earn harder and harder builds. So, I'll make it pretty easy to get your first Black Cat, but by the time you get to the Mark 14D12, I might not be seeing people earn them on the first day that they try for it. We'll see. I suppose it also depends on the level of challenge I give out and what's going on in the server. If the server is full of chaos and everything like that, it might be harder to focus on who's doing what achievements, but at the same time, more chaos going on makes for more of a war zone, and going to war gets you rewards, right? Sure, that's how it's gonna work. Bleh. Words. Let's close out the video, shall we? I'm sure any information I can put on screen that I haven't babbled about for the Airforce. And if you want more in-depth information, I do have an official intro guide that's only getting slightly outdated within the first couple of days. I'll make a fresh one if it gets too bad. But most of the information in there is accurate. And if you need any more information, you can drop me a line on PlayStation or in the comments section here on YouTube. My little kitty's meowing at me now, so I'm definitely gonna go. Anyways, yeah, that does it. Like and subscribe, all that nonsense. Bye-bye now. Not necessarily all of the options, but a handful of them and what they are. Goodness, Nova, what are you doing? Kitty. Do you want to be in the video, Nova? Okay, you might get in. You're really cute. You might get in the video. Yeah? Kitty? Okay. Let's try that again, kitty.
テーション